Let's talk to Nick Underhill. Well, I don't know Nick's feelings on anime. We know that Marcus Davenport loves anime, for better or worse. Nick, from New Orleans on Football. Nick, do you love anime? Have you ever watched any anime?
No, I have no feelings on it, but I do have a lot of opinions about your tiers that you share. I think a lot of them are highly flawed. I don't think that you're using real science, but, I mean, we can get into that another time.
Okay. All I'll say is this. A lot of people have problem with the distribution. We purposely force ourselves to create a staircase because by definition, it's what tiers should be, right? The upper tier is more exclusive than the one below it. What that causes is a lot of tough decisions, okay? And so like Mickey Loomis, I'm just here to make the tough choices, okay? And so that's what I have to do every single Friday. And there is no flaw. They are objectively perfect, kind of like New Orleans football. If you're a Saints fan, you want to go to New Orleans football, sign up today. Not only are you directly supporting Nick in the work that he does, but you are getting some of the best insight on the internet into the Saints. So I want to start here, Nick, because we talked this hour. We played the Aaron Rodgers sound from the Kenny Mayne interview where he's basically just saying that the Packers' culture has been broken by the GM, right? And I think it's an interesting parallel with the Saints where you had Emmanuel Sanders last year with some really interesting quotes about the Saints organization and culture and how good it was. And now during OTAs, despite the fact that you have, the Saints players came out and said they weren't going to go to these voluntary workouts. You now have 87% of the roster at OTAs. How did that come about? Like, why were the players out there saying this earlier and yet now almost the entire roster's there?
Yeah, just going back to the tiers, the Nintendo Switch, that was a huge oversight. We'll get into that, though, another time. But, yeah, I agree, with a lot of stuff with the culture. Look, I think one of the things that Sean probably doesn't get credit for, or at least he doesn't talk about that much, is his ability to adjust and just change things. And you see kind of what they're doing now with the OTAs and minicamp. And then even last year, right away, the pandemic hits, he tells those guys, hey, don't worry about it, go home. Get ready. We'll call you back when it's time to come. Just focus on getting ready and taking care of your family. And you don't have to worry about what's going to happen here. So there are no questions. And then this year, the players, they raise their concerns about, doing on-field work and risking injury. And look, I mean, we can agree or disagree about if that's the right approach for the team, but that's what the players are voicing. So Sean changes it up, and it's more, working out, working in the classroom. And, it's probably better if they're on the field, but if the guys don't want to be on the field, you're at least getting them in the building by taking away that element. You can get them in the classroom, and you can teach them the things that they need to learn, and they can still prepare at least somewhat for the season. So, I think that just goes into the culture, and, if that's the way the league's changing, players see that, they want to be part of that. They see their coaches listening to them, hearing them, looking out for them. And, I just think that all helps and, goes together in building that culture. And, Sean's talked about that a lot over the years, just kind of the way they've had to change things, even just their meeting structures, making them shorter because he knows he can only keep their attention for, 10, 12 minutes. So they'll do 10, 12 minutes of work and then, there's a break so the guys can look at their phones and do the stuff they need to do. And, that allows you to have, better bursts of teaching moments when, they can lock in and they know, hey, okay, 10 minutes, just keep my focus, and then I can let my mind wander for a little bit and come back. And, I think all these things really help with just building that culture and just having guys buy in.
Nick, so we said 87% there. I think 9 players are not there. I don't think it matters too much, but I am curious about Jameis and Taysom. Are they in the house right now?
I know Taysom has been for a while. I'm not sure on Jameis. Someone mentioned to me yesterday that they've seen Jameis around, so I think maybe he showed up. I know Taysom has been there a little bit longer. And, Jameis has been getting his work in, though, with a lot of the receivers off on his own. They're down at his house in Tampa, and, he's kind of building his own little culture with those guys and getting in those reps. So, it's interesting to see, kind of where they've been. I know Taysom's been at home in Utah with his family dealing with the stuff that he needs to do. So, it's going to be an interesting offseason because I know Taysom's been there a little bit longer and he's kind of trying to, build the, hey, this is how I want things done. I'm the starter now. And I know Jameis is looking at it like, hey, this is how I want things done. I'm the starter now. I don't think that there's, beef between the two guys or anything. But it is going to be interesting to see how, speaking of the culture, just kind of how it shifts. And, at some point, they're going to have to make a decision. And it's going to be interesting to see if that's sooner or later, because you're talking about two different approaches, two different offenses. And I'm going to be interested to see how long this battle actually plays out. Like, does it go the whole summer, or do they make a decision after, 2 weeks, second preseason game, make the switch, and you're on with one guy or the other? But, as far as the players that aren't there, I think you can go on Instagram and look at the stories and kind of, go through and see some of the guys that are posting photos not from the facility. So,
are there any big names? I don't know if you want to snitch, but are there any big names that aren't there right now that matters? I mean, maybe none of it matters, right? Because I trust Cam Jordan no matter what.
It's always possible people are posting old photos or whatever, but I know Marshawn Lattimore was at a pool party, according to his story. Will Clapp had a baby, so congrats to Will Clapp.
Hey, congratulations to Clapper, dude! I didn't even know that. Man, we got to text the old intern. You raise a fascinating point, Nick, that I hadn't really considered before, which is because of the stylistic difference of the QBs. You're talking about two different styles of offense that you run pretty drastically, and so I think that actually pushes you to make a move sooner rather than later. I look at Drew telling Jameis, "This is your team now." I look at the receivers training with Jameis in the offseason. Even though Taysom's been there longer, do you get the feeling that Jameis has the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do, and it's hard not to feel that way, because everything we're seeing is these guys with him, and then he's giving speeches to them, and they're posting the speeches, and look, it might just be from the stuff we're seeing. We haven't seen where Michael Thomas is. Maybe Michael Thomas is off quietly training with Taysom Hill. I doubt it, but we're just going off of what we see on social media, and Jameis has been, very out there. And yeah, the guys are with him and they're training with him, and it just feels like he has the upper hand. And look, the 4-game window we saw at Taysom Hill last year, I thought had very good moments, but I don't think it was quite good enough. And I think that allows you to let the imagination wander with Jameis. We know his upside is much higher. I don't know who actually has the higher floor. I mean, I guess Jameis had 40-some turnovers the last time he was a starting quarterback, so maybe Taysom's floor is actually a little higher. But look, I mean, if Taysom's going to be your quarterback, I think you got to make that switch, and you got to make the offense look a lot different than it did in that 4-game window. And you got to have those running elements in, and I think you got to change up the way you block, and you got to set up ways for him to extend plays and run better and use his legs. And I think all that stuff is going to take time, and you need to rep it. I don't know if you can go the whole, training camp, preseason, pocket passing, and then all of a sudden you flip the switch and you're doing all this crazy stuff. I think you got to rep it. And can you practice two offenses throughout training camp? I don't think so. I mean, the passing elements are going to be the same, I think, for both guys, but there is this other thing that if you're going with Taysom, you need to figure it out. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you can go the whole offseason and then just turn it on and say, okay, Taysom, we're going to figure this out on the fly. I mean, I don't think that's how it works. So I think you got to make a decision kind of early. I
mean, Nick, just as we're talking this thing out, I mean, even given the fact that the OTAs aren't as traditional as they normally are, right? Where it's more of a football practice. You're just talking about every rep then during camp being that much more precious. I don't know why, but Mike Thomas training with Taysom Hill just seems very funny to me. It was just like this too. But I do want to ask you about Mike Thomas. How do you feel about him entering this season? Obviously, last year, injury defined a lot, but the much more shocking stuff to me was some of the drama behind the scenes, and getting suspended and fighting with CD Deuce and everyone. How do you feel about Mike Thomas entering this season?
I will say, after going through the whole season and seeing how C.J. Gardner-Johnson kind of gets under guys' skins and gets them going, the Mike Thomas fight didn't quite seem as bad.
That's fair.
It seems to be something that he does. I'm not worried about him, though. I mean, I think if they have good enough quarterback play, he gets the ball, he's getting his catches, he's getting his yards. I don't really think there's going to be a lot of problems, and I think Mike's always going to get his targets. I'm not worried about his health or anything. I think it was just kind of a weird season for him. And look, he really tried to play through it. And on the way to the Philadelphia game last year, he actually told the team, hey, this is going to be my last game. I'm going to shut it down, get healthy for the playoffs. he tried really hard to play through that stuff. And, he was even solid in that game, and he was kind of at the end of his rope. So, I think he hurt himself a little bit by trying to come back and play and not just kind of, saying, hey, like, I'm going to take care of myself. Like, I think his approach of trying to be there for the team set him back and kind of spiraled his season a little bit. But, I think Mike's probably been sitting back and been frustrated for a whole year. And I think if Mike's frustrated and it's manifest in a positive way, I think that's a very good thing for the team.
Yeah, it's very well said. Nick_Underhill on Twitter. New Orleans.football. Sign up for New Orleans.football today. Trust me, if you're a Saints fan, it is so worth it. And, all the money's not going to some, like, nameless, faceless corporation. You are directly supporting the content that you love so much. How about another? This is going to be kind of random, but just thinking about him. What about Cesar Ruiz, year 2? I guess I didn't give Ruiz a ton of credit for just how tough it was being a rookie last year and learning in the environment in which you had to learn and then being expected to play immediately on an NFL level. What's the word around Ruiz?
Yeah, so I know there's two schools of thought, and the one is, when they were coming in last year, the plan was definitely to have Eric McCoy move to guard, Ruiz was going to play center, and that's how they wanted to move forward. And the thought process was that, McCoy has sub-5 speed, running the 40, he's a faster guy. He could get out, down the field, block more, and you could use some of his athleticism. It allowed him to get into space a little bit, and you could take advantage of that. But, Ruiz missed all those practices. He got hurt. They didn't have the off season. You just weren't getting the mental reps. You weren't getting the physical reps. He got stuck at guard, and it didn't work out. Now they're looking at it like, okay, well, we've invested a year into him playing this position. It wasn't great, but he's learned a lot, and McCoy's has another year invested at playing center. And, I think that the initial thought going into camp is that they're going to keep those guys where they were last season. And, hopefully Ruiz makes the adjustments and continues to ascend, and he can be, a more viable every week option at that position. Now, if it looks bad and you got to start making changes, I don't think the door is closed on that, but I think the ideal scenario would be for him to stay at guard and to keep McCoy at center.
All right, last one here with Nick Underhill. So the Saints right now have about 466, and I only know this from reading your article, but it's like $466K in cap space. They need a little over $6 million to sign the draft class. They'd like to sign a free agent as well. A few contracts they could rework. Ramczyk definitely seems like the ideal candidate. How do you think the Saints clear up enough space to sign the rookies and maybe bring in a free agent?
So the first thing is, I don't think that the way a lot of us talk about the cap is the clearest way. Like, it does cost $6 million to sign the rookie class, but when you sign those guys, currently the top 51 contracts are the only ones that count on the book. So if you sign somebody, you're taking off the 51st salary on the books right now is $780,000. So you sign somebody, you're taking off $780,000. So the net cost of the rookie class is actually only about like $2.5 million. So that's not a huge sum of money. You can find it. I mean, they're about as strapped as possibly can be, but you extend somebody, it's easy money. If you go out and you sign a veteran player, somebody for the minimum, it's, $1.1 million or something like that, $1.05 million. Again, you're taking off $780K, so it's like a $300,000 net difference. So they could sign some guys that really wouldn't cost that much. And, the rookie class, they do need to find it. I think an extension is the easiest way to get it done. I think Ramczyk's an easy one. Marcus Williams is an easy one.
Yeah.
I think Marshawn Lattimore is a harder one to do now, just given the situation. I would be a little bit nervous about that, just, seeing how he comes back. I think you need to see the consistency from him. And then the off-field stuff, I think it kind of buys you a little bit of time to figure that out. I think before that happened, there's probably a little bit of pressure on, hey, we got to sign this guy so he shows up and everything happens. I don't know if he has that leverage over them anymore. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But I think Williams and Ramczyk are very easy to do. If you get those done, I think you create probably about at least $10 million in cap space. That gives you all the money in the world to sign the guys you want. But look, the other thing is June 1st, that's the big date. And if you trade a player, cut a player after that date, you can designate June 1st cuts now. But more so, if you trade somebody, you can split up their guaranteed money. We call that dead money usually after they leave. You can split it up over 2 years and stretch the accounting that way. So I think if there is like a trade or something, I think that would probably be the date where it happens. And, you create a little cap space that way too. So they got to figure a couple things out. But it's not as dire maybe as it seems when you're looking at those whole numbers when you figure out how the accounting actually works.
The best in the game, and that explains right there why. Nick Underhill, at Nick_Underhill on Twitter. Thanks so much for this morning, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, y'all go sign up for NewOrleans.football. Y'all also get in your hashtag AskTheBench. Brought to you by Cold Coors Light next here on Off.